After I 100%ed the recent entry to the beloved survival horror franchise, Resident Evil Requiem left a lot to be desired. The game feels like something I played before, and I don't think I'm going to be the only person who feels that way after watching this video. There is so much of this game I'm going to be talking about today in the DNA of Requiem, so I wanted to revisit that game. Code Veronica is one of my favorite Resident Evil games. From the over-the-top campy villains to how well the level design is, I love everything about this game, and I can see a lot of influence this game had on Requiem. So any chance I get to replay one of my favorite games, I take it. So follow me along this journey of revisiting what seems to be the next remake for Capcom. Here is my retrospective review of Resident Evil Code Veronica. Resident Evil Code Veronica entered development shortly after Capcom canceled a port of Resident Evil 2 for the new launching console, the Sega Dreamcast. The port was canceled due to concerns that it would be inferior to the PlayStation version. Initially, the idea was being tossed around that series mainstay Jill Valentine would be the main protagonist of Resident Evil Code Veronica because Resident Evil 3 had yet to enter production. However, as time went on, plans began to change, and we ended up with Claire Redfield as our main protagonist, due to the events of the Claire B ending that changed during the writing of Resident Evil 2. I could not find if there were any reveals of a potential Jill Code Veronica game, but I did come across something really cool, the initial teaser trailer of Code Veronica. Have a gander.
It starts its prey with care. Its reflexes are lightning quick. Its power, terrifying. And it's immortal.
I know the trailer has some poor quality, but there's some really cool aspects I did notice. The quick turn and ready fire, which would have been new to the series, giving the player more agency and action. And the other was the line that the power is immortal. I wonder if Capcom was planning on this game having a pursuer with Claire or Jill, or something else. Whatever it could have been, I think it's cool to look back on the marketing of old games. It kind of reminds me of a simpler time. With our protagonist set, and our plot taking shape, it's time to take a look at the story of Code Veronica. Now, before we get too deep, Resident Evil Code Veronica is one of, if not the most important game in the series as far as the story is concerned. So 3 months before the events of Resident Evil 2, our heroine, Claire Redfield, is still in search of her brother Chris. This search leads her to an Umbrella facility in Paris, where she's ultimately met by their security and is captured, then subsequently trafficked to an Umbrella prison on Rockford Island. Her transport, Rodrigo, moves her to an underground cell waiting to be processed. However, the island is attacked by an unknown hostile organization. Rodrigo, who is now injured, sets Claire free. As Claire makes her way above ground, she is greeted by series newcomer, Steve Burnside. However, they decide to split up because Steve believes Claire would only slow her down.
Shut up! Make one wrong move and I'll shoot.
Relax, beautiful. I said I was sorry. My name's Steve. I was a prisoner on this island. And I'm guessing you're not from Umbrella either.
No, I'm Claire. Claire Redfield.
Claire? Nice. I'll remember that. Hey, I heard there's an airport around here. And once I find it, I can finally escape from this crazy island. I'll see ya.
Hey, wait up!
I don't want you following me, lady. He'll only slow me down.
Shortly after this, they are quickly reunited. Steve is looking up Claire's file and realizes she has an older brother, Chris. This leads Claire to send an email to Leon in hope of reaching Chris to aid in her rescue. Steve quickly interrupts, claiming you can't rely on anyone and they won't be coming.
Well, that file shows the latitude and longitude of this place. Why don't you send your brother the coordinates and ask him to come help?
Thanks, I'll do that.
Hey, I was just kidding. There's no way he could get here, even if he is your brother.
Yes, he can, I'm sure of it.
No way. He won't come. You'll just end up disappointed if you rely on others. Believe me, I know.
As Claire continues to explore the island, she is confronted by one of our antagonists, Alfred Ashford.
So, try this. Would you like a spot of tea? You? Yes!
Ah, wrong clip. Here we go.
I am Alfred Ashford, commander of this base.
Oh? You must be one of Umbrella's lower level officers if you're in command of a backwater base like this one.
How dare you! The Ashford family is among the world's first and finest. My grandfather is one of the original founders of Umbrella, Inc.
As Claire regroups with Steve, they stumble upon Alfred struggling with his personality and identity as he is assuming the identity of his deceased sister, Alexia.
Behold a winner and all his...
God damn it, I don't know who keeps messing with my files. I swore I got rid of all of these. Here's the correct file.
Claire Redfield, hold it right there.
We meet each other at last. A pity I must say goodbye so soon. I am Alexia Ashford. For the pride of the Ashford family, I will kill you.
Wait!
What's going on?
Steve! A secret door!
After her!
Are you okay?
I'm fine. It's just a scratch.
This must be...
What? No!
Wait a second. What just happened?
So there never was an Alexia after all.
Upon what seems to be the duo's escape, Steve mortally wounds Alfred and then Claire has to fight Nosferatu, who just happens to be the twins' father that was injected with the virus after they realized that they were created by Alexander's ingenious idea of fusing the family matriarch Veronica's DNA and fusing it with the gene that regulated intellect. As Claire dispatches the twins' father, Alfred in his final moments releases Alexia from her slumber. Alexia attacks the duo as they're making their escape and proceeds to capture them. While all of that capturing is happening, Chris is making his way to Rockford Island after receiving that email from Leon. He is greeted by Claire's trafficker, Rodrigo. He assures Chris that there's no one left on the island, and if Claire is alive, she did make it out. As Chris is trying to make his escape to continue his pursuit of Claire, he meets a shadow of his past he thought was dead, Captain Albert Wesker. Wesker has his own agenda now. He's working for a new entity, and Chris realizes that this is not the Wesker he once knew. Now he's infused with some superhuman-like powers. Chris is no longer a match for Wesker. However, it's through Wesker Chris learns that Claire is at an Antarctic base. Wesker needs to pursue Alexia. Claire needs to be rescued. They both separately make their ways to Antarctica searching for what they desire, but their paths will cross again. As quickly as Claire and Chris are reunited, they are subsequently separated. Alexia has kidnapped Steve and begun experiments on him similarly as she did to her dad, as revenge for what he did to the twins. As Claire is retreating from the mutated Steve, he regains his conscience for one last moment to free Claire and profess his love for her.
Oh, Steve.
You're warm.
Steve, you've got to hang in there, okay? My brother's come to save us. We're getting out of here.
Your brother kept his promise. I'm sorry, I cannot.
What? What are you saying?
I'm glad that I met you. I love you, Claire.
Steve? Steve? Steve?
And just like that, our knight in shining armor has passed away. As Chris arms the self-destruct sequence, he takes down Alexia and makes his way back to Claire, who has been abducted by Wesker. The two duke it out, and as the facility is collapsing, Wesker lets Chris know that he has what he needs from Alexia and Steve, and lets Chris know they will meet again. Chris makes it out with Claire alive, with the intent of bringing down Umbrella once for all. Now, like I said at the top of this section, this is probably the most important story in this franchise. So I intentionally glossed over a lot of the key details of what makes that so, because I strongly want you to play this game before the remake comes out so you can understand everything that's going on. Every single time I play this game, I feel like I'm learning something new, and I want you to experience that as well. So with the story out of the way, let's break down why I love this game. This is Resident Evil's first attempt at being cinematic, and it's a really good first attempt. This has the most cutscenes out of the first 4 games, and I think all of them are really well done. It makes it more immersive, and most of them are in-game. There's only a few pre-rendered cutscenes in this game. And with how well the writing is, it's really reflective of how important this story is to the franchise. Now with that being said, don't expect some high art. It's still Resident Evil. It's almost like Kurt Russell's movie Big Trouble in Little China. It's high-action camp that doesn't take itself too seriously, but it takes itself seriously in the world that it's set in. And when it comes to Resident Evil games, you absolutely need that camp, but what you really need is expert level design. And that is what I love about old school Resident Evil games. When you're playing this game, you can really tell that there was so much thought put into every little detail of a level. And I think with Code Veronica, Capcom is at peak form. Initially, when you would hear that you would play a game as Claire, and then you go back through the same areas as Chris, you might think it's just a simple copy and paste, but this isn't the case. As Claire, everything is as it seems. Your training facility and prison are in the early stages of an infectious breakout. The destruction, while plenty, is easily traversable. However, as you make your way back through all these areas as Chris, you start to notice the destruction and devastation. Everything is falling apart. On top of new passageways that are meant for Alfred. It looks similar, but your traversal is a whole new experience when you switch characters. And that's very crucial, leading to the game's replayability. If nothing changed, you wouldn't want to spend all this time in the world. However, Capcom really nails the level design of every section of the game, and there isn't a section of the game where I get to that I don't want to be in. Every time I play this game, I go over it with a fine-tooth comb because I don't want to miss anything, and it's that much fun. And to tie in what makes this level design so great is how well designed the items are. I really noticed this in my last playthrough of the game. Every single item that's not a gun or a healing ware has a second use. Let's look at the lighter for an example. You can light objects in the world, but you can use it as a combat tool in the rooms where there are bats. They won't attack you if you have the lighter equipped. And there's a point where you give the lighter back to Rodrigo, but there's still rooms with bats, so it kind of influences how you want to progress through the game in a certain way. Do you want to get to Rodrigo earlier so you can get the lockpick, or do you want to make sure you clear out everything? There's really an agency to the player with the decisions that they make and the items that they use. I really appreciate this level of detail. It never feels like an asset flip. Every item feels really thought out and cared for, and you can feel that every single time you play this game. I think this is so cool, and it keeps me coming back all these years later, seeing if there's something I still don't know about this game. It really goes to show the creativity Capcom used to have with Resident Evil. You can miss things, and you can find things on a new playthrough, and you don't get this with modern Resident Evil games, and I hope it's something that stays intact for the remake. With a lot of items in the game having multiple uses, it makes sense that there's an upgraded zapping system in Code Veronica. Instead of just a singular choice, we have it on a much grander scale. Almost as far as I can tell, every item that would be accessible by Chris if it's there in Claire's playthrough, Chris will be able to pick it up. However, it goes much further than this. There are key items like a fire extinguisher that is used between the two to progress the story for Claire and get a powerful weapon for Chris. And on your first playthrough, you're not going to experience all of this unless you're very thorough. And I also enjoy that on your first playthrough, it adds a level of complexity and difficulty of not knowing when you're going to switch to Chris and go back to Claire and vice versa. Some people might not enjoy this and it will turn them off, but this is a hard Resident Evil game. It's notorious for soft locking people out of the game, and to be honest, it almost happened to me on a recent playthrough. To give you an idea of how I make my videos, I normally play the game through on stream and then I go back off stream and play the game to capture footage. On my stream playthrough, all I had for Chris was a handgun, and then I was wondering how far back I could go, and then I realized I could put out the fire and collect the Magnum. And then on the playthrough for capturing footage, I realized there was also an AK-47 there. So in my scenario, GameFAQs would have saved my life back in the day. However, with the most nefarious part of the game being the tyrant fight on the plane, if you're not well prepared and don't have enough health or ammo, you are going to get soft lock out of this game and you're going to have to start over. To me, this is really cool design. Trial and error is the foundation of every video game. If at first you don't succeed, you try again. And then you replay the game until you're a master of it. The game encourages you to get better at it, and the more you play it, the more you're going to like it. I think this is a perfectly balanced game. On my stream playthrough, I narrowly beat Alexia. And then on my capture playthrough, I felt like a Terminator. I was loaded to the gills with heals and ammo. I felt invincible. Now, while feeling invincible with my new arsenal, the enemies of this game are really well designed, and I don't think it gets talked about enough. Aside from your typical zombie, we have new enemies in the Bandersnatch. They swing around and they can grab you from far distances, and they traverse levels very quickly, so avoiding them is pretty difficult. Joining the Bandersnatches in their mission to unalive you are the Hunters and Sweepers. Hunters are not much different from their RE1 counterpart. However, Sweepers are evolved hunters who can poison you while they're slashing you, making their encounters even more dangerous. Aside from an awesome assortment of enemies, they all seemingly have a weapon designed to deal with them. For the Bandersnatches, it seems like any sort of flame rounds were meant to dispatch them quickly. The Sweepers and Hunters came in pairs, so it was easy to gather that you wanted to use your dual-wield weapons to stagger them and kill them. This design is awesome because it makes you think about the threats at hand more, and switching to weapons accordingly while you're also planning your routes and save rooms crucial. Aside from the enemies, there's not many bosses in the game, and as much as that was a critique of mine in Resident Evil 9, it's not here. Because in Requiem, the game presents those enemies as bosses, however, they don't really feel like it. In Code Veronica, you have some optional enemies that you could consider bosses, but outside of that, you have a Tyrant, Nosferatu, and Alexia. And all of those encounters are really well done, making the payoff for those boss fights even more worth it. So that's everything I love about Code Veronica, and I know I'm probably missing some things, but is there anything I don't like about the game? Yeah. As much as I think this is a perfect Resident Evil game, there is some issues that I have with it. Mostly the issue that I have with this game is it is a Claire game, and you fight the final boss as Chris. I think it takes away from the game just a tad. We know Claire can stand on her own after taking down Burton in Resident Evil 2. It would have been cool to deal with Alexia as Claire because we spend most of our time as her. I've heard rumblings that this may be corrected in the remake, but I don't want an overcorrection either. Chris is crucial to the game because it mirrors the relationship of the villains. However, this is a Claire game, and I think she deserves much more time to shine. So where do I see the similarities in Requiem? There's a few things that really feel like Requiem was a setup for Code Veronica, and every time I replay either game, I kind of gather more. So here's what I found so far. Well, to start off, like I just mentioned, Chris takes over the third act similarly to Leon in Requiem, relegating the lead to almost a non-factor in the third act. Claire and Grace really don't do a whole lot in the third acts of their games. Next up, I noticed the parlor where you unlock upgrades for Grace in Requiem feels very similar to the casino room in Code Veronica. This is just speculation, but I think the BSAA containers are going to return in the 3D printing section of Claire's early game in Veronica. Then we have the spider boss, which I don't think you're going to be able to avoid as Chris in the remake. If you watched my Requiem review, you would know that I felt Planet 43 felt similar to me, but I couldn't place it. But after playing Code Veronica, it was pretty clear that it was going to be used as Alexia's form when you're in the third act and her tentacles are attacking you inside the building and the final boss, obviously. And that's all I really have to say about the similarities. And that brings me to the end of the video, because that's really all I have to talk about Code Veronica today. It's a game I adore, and I look forward to it every time I boot it up. It's definitely an S-tier Resident Evil game for me, and I encourage anyone to check it out for themselves before the remake comes out next year. And if you played the game before, let me know down in the comments how you feel about it, and what's your favorite moment from the game. And while you're there, hit that like and subscribe button for me. I'll see you guys in the next video.
Hey,